Some of us act like leaders, but we don't react like leaders. I'm thinking, yeah, well, that's kind of important, right? How you react, because you're actually interacting with another person. It's great to be a leader when you're sitting in your room counting your bugles, but now you got to go out and actually be a leader and interact with people. And a lot of those people have had a bad day, and we're in the bad day business. So, and the only thing we can control is our own attitude, right? You can't control much more than that. One of the problems with some leaders is they can't identify what a big deal is and what a non-big deal is.
Everything's a deal to them.
Everything's a big deal.
Welcome to the B-Shifter Podcast. John Vance here, along with Nick Brunacini and Terry Garrison. The Silverbacks are back! Woo! I want my silver back. Oh yeah, right. So I'm not going to do that. Anyway, it's been a month or so since we got together, so
It took us a week to get out of the chair.
I know we've been in.
Yeah, exactly.
We've been here for the last 2 hours, and then we finally decided to turn on the microphones.
The only thing we're missing is blankets. Yeah, wheelchairs and blankets. They look like the old soldiers' home.
Are these guys infirm? Do you know what's going on with
Back
that?
in my day, Sonny. Yeah, just what people want to hear.
How are you gents doing?
Boomerish.
Yeah.
Good. The weather, it's 80 degrees outside today in the Valley of the Sun. We're doing great, man.
You know, and this will be on this Thursday, so I want everybody to know that, you know, if you're looking to thaw out, Phoenix is the place, because the rest of this country right now, the weather sucks, and here is the most beautiful weather. And going into the Waste Management Open weekend, it's gonna be a madhouse.
Yeah.
Well, our friends Winston-Salem, the Blue Card Fire Department, they posted pictures today. Snow, like probably a couple inches on the ground there, which they're not used to that. Duck, North Carolina, Outer Banks, tons of snow.
Wow.
And they had like a 3-story mansion house just burned down this week.
Oh my God.
But they did a really good job at fighting that fire, because it's dry and winds and everything else there, and they did a nice job.
Bad.
The good thing about the snow is they can't trace your paintballs.
Yeah. Oh, that was a good story this week. You know, and you know, some of this.
Well, there's the first topic.
Yeah.
I thought I'd throw that out.
You floated that one in the bowl.
It smelled a little bit like political, I guess. But the Jacksonville firefighters, 4 of them were arrested last week for basically shooting paintballs from fire apparatus, it sounded like.
At police cars and other vehicles. That's what it sounded. That's the alleged.
Yeah,
so
that's allegedly what happened.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
Remember our potato cannons? We would blast. We had a large empty field between us and the insane asylum. Is basically what it was, a prison and the insane asylum where the criminally insane were, and we would get in the back of the station and pump a potato gun and shoot potatoes. Those things would rocket out there. It all went really well until somebody thought it would go further and faster with oxygen. Is that what happened, Nick?
We started, and then we did our thing.
Yeah.
And like it became an open competition at the station who could go the furthest with it. And so they were launching potatoes over a quarter mile into a parking lot that was just hitting whatever it hit. And we saw that this was no longer tenable as an activity for the station.
Sustainable.
And so we kind of stopped it at the time and saved ourselves. And then a couple years later, I think I was at BC when this happened, it was Station 18, and they put pure oxygen in the combustion chamber and ended up breaking every piece of glass on the apparatus floor, all the fluorescent lights, the glass in the station doors. And a guy had to be taken to the hospital to get stitches.
Oh no!
And so that's how the story got out. And I don't know what happened after that, but potato cannons, you saw less and less of them after. So it kind of was. See, and that was early. That was years ago. So it was more of you had a chance to self-regulate, and so it wasn't as. See, I think the internet has screwed everything up. So this kind of thing that happened here in Florida, where these guys got in trouble for that. Really, they're going to criminally charge them? I mean, they shouldn't be doing it, but come on. Look at what's going on in the country, and this is what we're going to focus on? And I think you're right. I think part of it is there may be some, who knows, going on with relationships between people, but in the days they would take care of this differently, where it wouldn't become they wouldn't be paying a lot of attention to something that's a low-level thing, really, I think.
The police chief would visit the fire chief, and they would talk, and then the fire chief would send somebody out to the fire stations, and then the firefighters would apologize to. It would be.
They would take care of it.
Yeah, it would all be handled.
You know, there was a deal. I used to work with a sergeant when I was at BC, and then as a shift commander. And this guy was running a precinct for a while. He was moved up. And I remember we would like get together at least every 2 or 3 weeks and have a meal. And he was the salt of the earth. If all cops were this guy, the world would be a much better place. Nice. And he was doing a thing where he's in charge of the precinct, and the mechanic comes and gets him. And he says, "Hey, I got to show you something." And he takes him, and there's 2 cars up on the left, patrol cars. And he shows them the suspension underneath. And these cars are basically, they need new suspensions. They're bad. And the guy says, they said they were chasing a guy down an alley and they hit a pothole and this is what happened. He says, "That's not what happened." And he shows them where there's rub marks and a bunch of other things. And there's a street, they call it Tickle Hill, and it's got a big grade going up. And he says, these guys were jumping the cars, these patrolmen. And he says, that's how they did this. And so my buddy said, "Okay, I'll take care of it." He brings the 2 patrolmen in next day, sits them down. He says, "Hey, your cars wasn't in the alley. We know what you guys were doing." And he tells them. And the 2 guys are like, "Yeah, we're sorry. Yeah, you got us." And he tells them, "You're paying for it, right? So you could do this back then." Yeah. And he says, "It's coming out of your pockets. You guys did this, you shouldn't have, and you're going to be financially responsible, okay? You got it?" And they said, "Yeah, yes, sir, thank you." Next day, who do they come back with? Union rep.
Oh, yeah.
Union rep sits down, he says, "Hey, you can't make these guys pay. Come on." They fessed up, and he says, "Okay, here's the deal. It's a felony what they did. Lied to me about a felony is what it is." They looked at the union guy. They says, "We're going to take care of this, okay? We're done with you. Sorry, we brought you in." Excuse the guy. He says, "You paying?" He says, "Yeah, we are. We're sorry, sir." He says, "I understand." He never did it again. He says, "Best 2 guys in my district. Anytime I had a trouble, I went to them. You need to get the word out." And he says, they became my guys then. He took care of them, and they're going to take care of him now. And everybody was happy. Yeah. It was the best solution you could have. It didn't cost taxpayers a dime. Those guys dodged the bullet. And now I'm sure it's horrible, and you can bring 8 people. The internet would go crazy. Yeah, half of them would say, "This is horrible. They should all go to prison." Well, no. This was the best solution to that problem. He fixed it.
Yeah. There's been a time that there were things that probably, especially in my early tenure as fire chief, that should have been turned over to law enforcement that we took care of internally. Hate to admit it, but it was dumb, first fire chief job stuff.
Yeah.
But then there's been other times I've gotten that visit from the police chief where it's like, I'm glad that he came and talked to me first. And
it's all about process.
And it didn't really rise to the level of criminal charges. I had a guy steal, probably one of my biggest regrets is I had a guy steal from a Goodwill bin and was witnessed in fire apparatus.
Oh, Jesus.
Taking a mini bike out of it, like a motorized mini bike, loaded it on the truck and took it back to the firehouse. And that got turned into me. And I took care of that internally, and really in retrospect, looking at how much trouble that employee was later on, it's like this was a criminal matter. It really, I really should have dealt with it differently. But then there was other times that it was like, I'm glad the police chief talked to me about this, and I was able to deal with it and get it squared away.
Well, I mean, it's just egregiously stupid to do something like that. And you're like, you're too dumb to work here.
Yes.
I mean,
go buy a mini bike, knucklehead.
Yeah.
I'm like young public safety people do stuff they shouldn't do. Well, you know, that it's almost like young elephants, adolescent elephants growing up, and they become rogue and start doing stuff. Well, the adults bring them back into line and say, no, we don't do that. And, you know, they correct it. So that's kind of part of growing up is not every mistake you make should be fatal or go on your record or whatever it is. I mean, that's.
But those guys did the right thing in that car situation because they said, yeah, we did it. You got it.
Yeah. I mean, that was, I mean, that's really what you're looking for is don't do this again. This was wrong. And this is how we're going to. And I think, like I said, back then you could justify it. Where like your boss would look at that and think, wow, that's an excellent solution. It didn't cost the city any problem. They learned their lesson, and you know, so what? That's kind of what you expect out of your leaders.
I think nowadays, I heard a quote the other day, and I hope I say it right. It's that there's no situation so bad that a human can't make it worse.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And part of that is lying, right? Getting caught and lying about it. And then you got to do the next lie, and then that gets bigger.
Well, it's the cover-up that gets you.
You do it to yourself. And then we're going to talk about leadership. Leadership also is it's reaction. We're going to talk a little bit about leadership reaction to situations. And they can make it so much worse. No situation so bad that a human can't make it worse, right? We had a chief like that everything was I had to go deal with that chief he actually was a higher rank than me at one time, and then he kind of stalled out, and I went past him, and then he worked for me. And every time that he dealt with a supervisor or a firefighter, then I would have to get involved. Somebody would have to get involved. I just happened to do it for a couple of years. And what I had to deal with is not what that other firefighter did, but how he treated that other firefighter in the process. Like, dude, you can't do that.
He's the man that taught me that one freelancing chief can out chaos like 3 freelancing ladder companies. Yeah. That guy would show up to the incident scene and he would go mobile and it's over, man. Any kind of organization we had, he is going to destroy. I watched him on the news once, and there was a paramedic who lived in this first due area who was off duty, who crawled up on engine 9 and was protecting the exposures, like 30-mile-an-hour winds. And this guy's wearing cowboy boots and a swimming suit and a tank top, and he is wheeling that deck gun. And he's saving property. He's saving the windy side of what's going on. And the sheriff gets there and he calls them down, and they started some hand gestures, and you're like, this is not going to go well. And he chased them off that truck, and pretty soon the eaves of the exposures are smoking, and you're like, this is, you can't make this up. It's like Animal House.
I was the senior advisor of an incident, and Bruno was in the command van with me.
Oh, and that's even the worst.
And that guy was out front, and so we were sending companies, and this chief officer was in the front yard. He wasn't assigned anywhere in the incident. And when the companies would run by, he would try to redirect them. I need you to go. Bruno looks at me, he goes, what's he doing? I go, I don't know. He goes, go out there and tell him, and I've said this story before, I said, go out there and ask him if he has a tumor. If he doesn't have a tumor, tell him to get the fuck off the fireground.
Yeah.
So I go out there and I said, hey, Red, have you had a tumor? I mean, I'm having fun with this now.
Yeah.
No, why? Then fire chief says, out of here.
Yeah.
He put his head down and walked off the scene, but it's like, oh my gosh.
Hey man, we're finishing the book up, so I'm going through my computer looking for pictures and art and all this other stuff.
Fire command book.
Yeah, so I've got all this going on. So there's things I've scanned like 8 years ago that I know are in there somewhere, and I can't find them. And I got to have this to finish this thing. And I landed on a series of pictures, and it was a fire in the strip, and there was a carpenter shop in it. And there was a hotel on the other side, and we got assigned as a sector to take the hotel and keep the fire from extending. And I mean, it was It was one of those things where you tell stories forever with the little details that happen all over that thing. And Ladder 11 was up on the roof trenching, and we were doing hand signals with each other. And you're like, get off the roof. Anyway, in the alley, the sheriff was there. And there's pictures of us wearing turnouts like rams hitting heads. And we drove him out of our sector into the east side of the thing where he could just cause more chaos. But I remember I had Ladder 1 chase him down the alley. I said, keep him out. He can't be in our attack position at all. So we were, and the saws are going. You can hear them. They're trenching the roof, and you're like, what are they doing up there? And I'm watching the smoke just get darker and cooking and curling. I'm screaming to command, get that ladder off the roof now. My brother leans over and flips me off. I'm thinking, I knew it was you bastards. Wasting your time, man. We trenched this thing front to back and we saved it. I thought, saved it my ass. I said, it burned right up to the hotel. I'm protected. Come on.
Hey, today, what we want to talk about, there was we're 20 minutes in. We might as well get to the topic. Terry, excellent article last week on bshifter.com. I thought this was really good. And the title of it, Think You're a Strong Leader, Your Reactions Might Prove Otherwise. Yeah. So we want to talk about some of the reactions that leaders have. We want to start off with, you own your attitude and reactions and making excuses. I know that when we have issues once in a while where human nature might be to make some excuses, but let's start off there.
Well, that started with a quote that I came across, and it was, some of us act like leaders, but we don't react like leaders. I'm thinking, well, that's kind of important, right? How you react, because you're actually interacting with another person. It's great to be a leader when you're sitting in your room counting your bugles, but now you got to go out and actually be a leader and interact with people. And a lot of those people have had a bad day, and we're in the bad day business. I had I think it was Bruno, it might not have been, but he would say, like, when somebody comes into your office and they had a bad day or something goes wrong and you got to interact, that's kind of like your house fire. As a leader, as a fire chief, you shouldn't ignore that. Mm-hmm. There's no non-act. You can't hide from it. There's no neutral leadership.
Most lower-ranking officers do not covet the idea of going in and having a one-on-one with the fire chief, especially over some kind of problem they're having.
Right.
Yeah. But that's not a happy time for them.
But
usually.
when you're the fire chief and the way you react to that person that'll leave a lasting mark on that.
Oh, yeah.
We had a fire chief that practiced second chance management for 30 years, and I was actually benefited from that early on in my career. Well, okay, I'm not getting fired over this.
Oh, I benefited well before you did. Yeah, I'm still alive.
And so I actually wasn't listening very well when you read the first one. So what was that one? But that's where this premise came from, is like, how do you react as a leader? So what'd you say there?
You own your attitudes and reactions and don't make excuses is the first one.
Yeah, how about that? So, and the only thing we can control is our own attitude, right? You can't control much more than that. You can control people through processes, but really our attitude and the way we respond to somebody, everything's not a big deal. I used to use an analogy of remember asteroids? Mm-hmm. And you'd sit there and you had that little diamond and you'd shoot the rocks coming by. And there's people that are shooting at these rocks out here that have nothing to do with, they're not going to harm you at all on the big rocks coming at them. One of the problems with some leaders is they can't identify what a big deal is and what a non-big deal is.
Everything's a deal to them.
Everything's a big deal. Everything's got to be pushed up the top. And even the middle managers, they should be able to manage a lot of that on their own without it going to the top.
Terry, problems are like roofs. There's a lot of different kinds of them. And they have different features and characteristics and strengths and weaknesses. Yeah.
But really, the way, all of us, there is not one firefighter out there, I would imagine, that's listening, that hasn't done something goofy and sat across from one of their bosses and remembers exactly how that boss responded to them in their situation, right? Mm-hmm. Well, we were lucky. We had a fire chief to go, okay, he'd listen to you, and he'd go, yeah, that wasn't good. And now here's what we're going to do, depending on what the I guess, intensity of the issue is. Sometimes it goes into an official disciplinary process. Sometimes it goes into a counseling. Sometimes you got to sing them a sad song, right? But but not everything's big. So how are you going to respond to each situation? It's tremendous the amount of influence a leader has on somebody when they're. Bruno used to say when somebody's having a really bad day and did something really stupid, you should probably be as nice to them as you possibly can at that time, because that's when they need it the most.
Well, when we need kindness the most, we deserve it the least, because we've done something stupid ourselves to put us in that position.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always use the analogy like if you got little kids, and we've all had little kids, and we've all been some point in our life where this little kid would, for instance, run out in the street, run out in traffic. You're playing with a ball, cars in the neighborhood. Kid runs out in the street, jeepers, creepers. You go after him. First thing you want to do is you want to hit him on the ass and say, don't go out in the street. But before you do that, you should probably say, are you okay? Mm-hmm. You fell down in the street. The car didn't hit you. What? Are you okay? And I think Bruno was really good at that. Before he would pass any kind of judgment on you, he would ask you, are you okay first? Let's see where you are with it. And he would do that. It wasn't, I don't know, it wasn't soft or wimpy in any way. He'd just make sure, are you okay? How are you doing?
Well, they do a primary and a secondary on you to make sure you don't have a tumor.
Right.
And when I was a young firefighter, our engineer kept hitting stuff. And finally, they intervened. I mean, the last one, I mean, he almost hit a semi going fast, and would have killed all of us. They took him and they checked his eyes, and he needed glasses. They said, you can't see at distance. And he says, well, maybe that's why I keep bumping stuff. And he got glasses, and that was it. He was never got in an accident again. You thought, well, okay, fix the problem.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But he would always do that first. It was check on you first. Are you okay?
Yeah.
And then if you're okay and you deserve to get your ass kicked, you're going to get your butt kicked right then. Because he's not going to mess around with that either, right? Because you can't let that go. People, you know.
Well, probably about once every 7-8 years during his chief time, he would have somebody where they would nurse him back to health, and then they'd have to fire him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said, well, no, we had to save you, but you can't work here anymore. What you did is there's no way that you can continue, and that organizationally we can recover from what you did without these consequences, because that basically makes it affirmative for me what you did, and if you're still here, blah, 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 blah.
And, you know, and when you're in that, we're jumping all around, but when you're in that position where you got to fire somebody, you don't got to be mean about it.
No.
You know, unfortunately, I had to fire quite a few people in one department, and I would call them in, and I was as kind as I could be to them because I knew I'd already made my decision. There's no reason that I have to scream at these people and get mad at them. They just changed their entire life and their family's life, and they're no longer going to have a paycheck that has this city on it. So it's like, okay, well, you know what? I don't know what you're going to do tomorrow, but you're not going to do it with that name on the back of your shirt. You're going to go find something else to do because this is your last day in the fire service.
Well, in the private world, what we do is we tell them, we're sorry, but there's no longer a place for you here. I'm going to pay your health insurance for the next 6 months. And I'm going to give you 3 months salary and blah, blah, blah. And why? Well, you know, you're like, well, because you suck. And I didn't hire you and I'm firing you. But you tell them, well, you know, there's no place for you here anymore. I'm sorry, it didn't work out. And so...
You know, the other thing about that reaction is that, and we're talking about maybe a company officer level or a middle manager level, is everybody in that group is watching how you treat that person when they went through that.
Oh, it's all being recorded.
Yes.
But they're watching like at real time also.
Yeah.
They're just like, okay, you said you're going to do these things. Let's see what happens. And if you don't act the way you said you're going to act, you act like a screaming banshee, my mom used to say. Everybody's watching that going, okay, now we got your number because you didn't do what you said you're going to do. And you can not only influence that person, but you're going to influence that entire group, and they're going to have an opinion about how you responded.
See, I think that's why, like, when we're, like all the leadership stuff we're doing, is it's got to start with the work.
Yeah.
Because if you context it around the work we do, it's just, so everybody's got a role in doing that. And if you won't contribute to that anymore, then you probably shouldn't be in that organization. You have selected yourself out. So if you, and a lot of people do it unconsciously, and they're like, well, no, I'm good on calls. It's just that, during the day, I've got some gaps that you need to just be patient. But, no, we've been patient for 10, 12 years with this, and we're done now. And, the last series of experiences we had, we said that, and now you're gone. But I really think that if you don't want to do the work, then you don't belong. That's why we're here, is to do the job we do.
And when you describe the work, you made me think of firefighters that are really good at firefighting. Like they can do the physical stuff, kick
the whole
down
thing.
the door, but they don't treat customers nice. Well, part of doing the work is on EMS calls. You also got to be a good firefighter and do that work. That's part of it, and that's
core services. We do all the core services.
That's why I see guys get in trouble the most. Is like they're really good firefighters over here, and they think that carries them all the way through.
No,
and they're almost like a bully to our customers.
Many of them are reprehensible human beings. Yeah, I mean, just socially, their personal relationships are destroyed.
Yes,
they're always in trouble for something they've done on their days off. They're entitled. I'm special. I'm the greatest firefighter. No, you're a hump. And you guys get a fire about once a month, and so for like 95% of your calls, you suck. I don't need that. You're like having to carry insurance. That never pays. And what it is they've been allowed, and that's their reputation. Oh, they're a great firefighter.
Right. And
we've all worked with them, and you're like. And a lot of them, you're like, I don't think you're that great a firefighter, to be honest. I mean, you say you are, but anyway.
Being a good human. Being a good human is also being a good firefighter. Just the one last thing on that point that you made in the article, there was a Viktor Frankl quote that used to hang up in your dad's workshop about when the event happened. Hey, and by the way, Viktor Frankl, some really nice light reading for you kids.
Yeah. When you're done with that, gets the niche G next.
But it was between the event happening and the time you react to it, there's space. Use that space. This is the gist of the
all you can control is your own self.
Yeah,
That's it. You can't control other people's events, just you. That's the only thing that you got the brake pedal on.
So do you guys have an example of a time where you started processing something, an event happens, in that space you're processing it, and you're starting to lose it?
Yesterday,
and you're going to react poorly?
Yesterday. I'm going to church following my wife because I go do something after Mass and she goes that way. So I'm following her and we're getting on the freeway in the merge. We're getting ready to get on in another lane and a pickup truck goes past me and cuts my wife off. Well, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
45 seconds later, I'm going 94 miles an hour so I can cut that guy off. It's like... Yeah. Why did I do?
What am I doing?
What the hell happened there? First of all,
what does that guy have inside his truck that you don't have?
A gun.
Firepower.
It just pissed me off so much. And if it would have been me, I would have thought, okay, asshole. But for some reason, I really personalized that, and I overreacted that yesterday. And my wife says, "Did you catch him?" And I go, she's like, "Really? Was it worth?" And I go, "Probably not." We do that every day. So and you carry that with you. You do it in your own personal life, and then you do it on your days in the fire service where you just overreact. I seem to do better as a fire chief and as a command officer, not overreacting than I do in my own personal life.
Yes.
For some reason, when I put the uniform on, especially the chief's bag, it feels like fit badge. Okay, I got a little bit of responsibility I got to take care of here today, and people are watching. I do a better job with that. So I was just thinking that, but that seriously, that happened just yesterday. I looked down, I'm going, damn, I'm doing 92 miles an hour. I back off, and I thought, what an idiot I are, right?
Yeah.
For no reason other than I wanted to react. And I think that's when I said we personalize that. That's what happens in the fire service as leaders, is we take it personal and we almost use that "you disrespected me"
Right.
type. You know, back when about 10 years ago when it was all about respect, well, they disrespected me. You heard that a lot, gang members and all that. Yeah, you didn't respect us. Well, when you get in a fire chief position or a manager position, I think if you get caught up in that, you need to respect my positional power, you're going to suffer with that because you're going to respond inadequately, I think. And if you use your personal power, we talk a lot about that in the article, your personal power, which is relationships back and forth, that's a lot better than whenever you use your positional power of I'm the chief, you drop back. And the more you use that, the less effective it is. The more you use relationship power, the more effective it is. So I think that's it, is we get caught up with our badge. You walked on my badge. Have you ever heard anybody say that?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had a chief that once said, we play by the golden rule here. He who wears the gold rules.
Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, or these call it, this is pick and choose. I get to pick and choose what you do today. Yeah, that's funny. That was another
Try
great
that
fire
at home,
chief. Yeah, that doesn't work very well. But you're right about personalizing things, because I think there's 2 times that I lost my cool, and it was about trivial stuff, but it was, you know, one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made as far as hiring people was one of the guys who made the infraction, and I wanted to fry this guy so bad because, like, I'd go to extrication scenes, and watching this guy move was like watching molasses. I mean, he was. I said to him once, I go, I didn't know it was possible to watch a person actually move time backwards, but it was, you did it. You did it. You're like a quantum leap guy. Like, how did we end up on this extrication scene for 35 minutes before getting the person out? Right. And the guy was just a slow piece of work. Wow. And I remember it was something personal that I just wanted to, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, and I caught myself. It's like, you can't do that. No. You know, as the chief, you can't do that. Even though personally I want to skewer the guy.
Well, you know, our firefighters, I jumped in on you, Nick. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Our firefighters, that's why they get in trouble with patients, is because they feel like sometimes a patient is disrespecting their position of authority as the firefighter. I'm the paramedic on the scene. You guys, we had one captain. It's like, okay, we own this house now. I'm in charge. I'm the captain. And he's a great fire captain, but not a great. I'm in charge of this house now. And he would tell people, you're no longer in charge of your own house. I'm here. It's like, dude, settle down. But I think firefighters feel like they're disrespected by the customers sometimes, and sometimes they are. There's no doubt about it. You know, we shouldn't let any customer touch us, abuse us, hit us. We should use the back off principle at all time. They spit on you, back off, whatever that is. Yeah. And so I know it's hard out there being a firefighter, but don't get caught up in that disrespect. And then when you're a leader, don't get caught up in that whole, they disrespected my position. Don't you know who I am? Oh, that works out really well.
I didn't overreact very much. I had the opposite problem. It's probably underreacting and, just minimizing.
You had that ain't nothing. That was yours. Oh, that ain't nothing.
Yeah, it could always be worse. Yeah. How bad is it really? Yeah. And generally, like the situations that would escalate, it would. Maybe there's times where if I would have maybe reacted a little stronger, it would have minimized that sooner. But it didn't, and it continued to escalate and escalate until it was like, no, somebody's going to be suspended now. This is not, You called me and started this party, and this is the way it's going to end now. And so those things could go on for a month or two and have different layers to them. And they didn't happen that often, but it was usually some problem that 2 bored people in a fire station started on one another. Yeah. They had no issues. See, and Garrison talked about it. We worked in Camelot. So if you couldn't get along there was something wrong with you, right. just psychologically. You were a mutant. I mean, because we we were exactly like every other fire department as far as the personnel goes. I've said this before. It's the same 10 people.
I'm skipping around a little bit because there's some key points I wanted to hit on here.
Hey, you read it.
One of them.
It's your question, Vance. You got the control board there. Yeah. We do what you want.
I don't remember what I wrote.
One of them is about ratting out your homies. And I always, I think you had a good explanation on this because Bruno would write that a lot, but I didn't hear a lot of explanation personally from him. So let's talk about ratting out your homies and taking care of things. Now, we've always believed in taking care of things on the lowest level possible and not advancing it. And that's really what you're talking about here. But let's expand on that because people on our card might see don't rat out your homies and
I
wonder.
don't remember what honestly, that's so weird when you write that. It's been a week.
And it's pause before you panic. Let's start with pause before you panic. What does that mean?
Oh, man, like anything in life, take a deep breath and
underreact.
Try to.
That's what it means. Don't lose your shit.
If you think about all the things that we're going to talk about here today about reacting, and you think about the role of an incident commander on a working fire, and apply those kind of like Bruno's cool command that we're going to come up with later, that Nick's going to publish later. All those things on how you run an incident and how you act as an incident commander apply here. And you wouldn't get on a scene of an incident and take over, transfer a command. You're out in your car, your vehicle, transfer a command. You're going to take a second and look, listen to what occurred, and then you're going to start making some decisions, develop your incident action plan after you go through your strategy and your risk management. If you do all that in an everyday leadership situation, it works out really well, where you just pause a second. Like back to my car incident. If I would have just paused and thought, okay, but man, as soon as I saw him go past my wife, I hit the pedal. If I would have just waited another 5 seconds, it would have been done. He would have been out of sight. I would have been...
De-escalate. That's what we do. The fire service is the #1 organization for de-escalating situations. Right? That's what we. That's how we restore public safety. We go and we de-escalate the hazard. That's what we do.
And you need to pause and take things. And you're really good at this, John, because when we get over here and we get on a roll talking, we're like, rah, 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 rah. I look over at you, and you wait patiently, and you listen to what we say, and then you respond.
I redirect.
You're very, very professionally. And I think that's what it is. So just take that pause before you react, and that pause is going to build, it's going to give you time to formulate your plan, and then whatever you say next, and another thing on there, whatever you say can't be unsaid. But that's why the pause part is so important, because whatever you say to that employee, they're going to remember it forever. And you're going to remember it for the next day, but they're going to remember it forever.
Well, and don't rat out your homies doesn't mean covering things up.
No,
we're not trying to hide things. We're trying to take care of things.
Yeah, back to that.
And we don't overlook substandard performance, right? So we do our job and we make sure, and that's what we do. We help everybody to hit at least that benchmark of doing their job.
Yeah, and so I thought we were talking about taking a pause, but when it comes to don't rat out your homies, is a lot of things that can be, when we said it, not everything's a big deal. We should be able to manage things at our level. And that's part of that empowerment card, is that what can you manage as a supervisor? What's within your authority to manage? And then by managing that, do you have the organizational support? Like there's some organizations that from the fire chief down, that if you don't kick this up and it gets out and they find out about it, you're going to be in trouble. And there's other organizations like, you got to, like Bruno, we could err on the side of managing it ourselves.
Yeah.
And if he found out about it, it would be a lesson learned up the ladder. It's like, no, next time that's a big deal. You need to kick that up, and you wouldn't pay the fatal price of looking like you're trying to hide something. So you'd get better at saying, okay, I can manage that at my level. Nah, that I got to kick up. That's one of the 3 things Bruno would say is, you got to be sober, celibate. What was the other one? Sober, celibate.
And on time.
And on time. He goes, that's why I want my firefighters, sober, celibate, and on time, 24 hours a day. That's all I want them. So if it was beyond, it was less than that, you could probably manage a lot of those at your station, at your level. And as a company officer, Well, I would have guys come. Here's an example. I'm sitting in my office in the third largest fire department in the country. I'm sitting in my office. A guy comes up and he says, "Chief, you're not going to like this. What is it?" And he'd tell me something that happened in a fire station. I go, "Okay, what'd they do?" This is when I first got there. "What do you mean?" "Well, you're telling me that this incident occurred." I'm thinking in my mind, that doesn't sound like that big of a deal. Guy's out of a uniform or whatever. "But what happened?" "What do you mean?" I said, what did that supervisor do to that guy?" "Well, nothing. He told his supervisor, the chief officer." "And what did the chief officer do to that guy?" "Well, nothing. He told me." "What are you going to do? What did you do about it?" "Well, I'm telling you." It's like, no. You got to kick this back down. You can't
delegate this to me.
You can't delegate up something that you need to handle at your level. So next time you come to me with one of those, I would think it would be nice to say, "This guy did this and the supervisor did this." And it's like, okay. Or "This guy did this and it was big enough it went to a chief officer and the chief officer handled it this way." And then you got this sequential order of authority that takes place to manage whatever that is. But everything can't be pushed all the way up, because then you have some fire chiefs, and we talked a little bit about it, Nick, if you want to bring it back up. Some fire chiefs, they'll not only not handle it themselves, they'll kick it right over to the police chief.
Yes.
And you've seen that happen in organizations. And then that's an ugly thing.
No one. I think a lot of times in those cases, nobody's really running the fire department on a day-to-day basis. And then when something bad happens, it just defaults to the person with the most power within the AHJ.
The biggest positional power. But a lot of times you'll not a lot of times, but there are times where you'll hear of a fire chief who allows the police chief to manage their department, and that
personnel matters in the fire department.
That is total BS, man. And there's city managers who would encourage that.
Yeah. Well, and I'd go one further too. There's fire chiefs who use HR for everything. They litigate every little problem through HR instead of taking care of it on a company
HR
level.
loves that.
Yeah, they do.
They want that.
An example is somebody didn't like a nickname. And this fire chief just took it right to HR instead of dealing with it at the station, and usually there's some other problem going on. So let's uncover the problem, fix the problem, and move on. But now that you're going to go to HR, that opens up a whole other can of worms, man, that is going to be painful for everyone to deal with.
And then once you kick an issue up to HR at a certain level and you make that your norm, it's hard to get back to manage
Everyone expects
things,
it, yeah.
because now it's like, no, you need to kick those over. And I guarantee that if HR finds something out from a fire department, the first person they talk to before they come back to you is they talk to the city manager. And the city manager knows about fire department problems that they have no business knowing about. They don't need to know. Now, some things they do need to know because it impacts firefighter safety or customer service. But a lot of things, they don't need to know that.
Well, the ratting out your homies, that's a two-way street, too, is the homies have a
responsibility?
Yeah, with that whole thing. And they can't. So one of the things I used to tell companies when I was at BC is what you need to really guard against is doing anything that outperforms my ability to help you with it.
That's great.
So once you do that and it gets outside of my realm, those things where I got to go to my boss, I no longer direct how that goes. And there's issues that I had to take to HR. Like when you do anything that has to do with any kind of time off. So like telling somebody you're not working here the rest of the shift. Now personnel's involved.
Yeah.
So if they did something that upset the balance enough that I had to remove them from a station, they have outperformed my ability to save them in the end. Now, I can still advocate for them or testify against them, depending on what it is. And what I do is going to depend upon what that individual did to put themselves in that position. Yeah. So, I mean, if There's times where I went and talked to employees and said, you need to retire today. In fact, I talked to them on the phone because I couldn't get in front of them personally because they were hiding out. Yeah. Said, if you don't retire, your pension's in jeopardy. It's because they're going to charge you with a felony, and this is what's going to happen next. You're going to be fired.
They're on the way to your house.
Yeah, well, they were.
Exactly.
I called them because the police called me and said, where is he? I said, I don't know. So I couldn't get a hold of him. I called his mom. The mom called him, and he calls me like 10 minutes later. Yeah, why do you need me? Because the police are looking for you, man. And he knew why they were looking. Well, what'd you tell him? I said, I don't know where you are, but where you need to be is at the pension office signing your papers. If what they said, they were serious about finding you, you need to be retired. And he was arrested a week later. They caught up with them.
And you know, you said that, and a lot of those issues that go pretty much up the top are off-duty issues because I can't outperform
100%.
Yeah, you can't outperform that. But when you have a situation at whatever level it is, and we haven't talked about this yet, is that the first thing you got to ask yourself, okay, is that a training issue or is that a behavioral issue? Is that a disciplinary issue or does that require more training? Because a lot of times it's like, dude, you know you did this. Don't do it again. Here's what you did. Here's the expectations going forward. Do you understand them? Yes, I do. Okay. That's a form of training. It really, because they say effective training, the definition of effective training is a change in behavior. If you can change their behavior and they don't do whatever that is again, you're okay. And the other thing is,
I don't know if it's consequences. The cop telling them it's a felony. I'm going to charge you.
The on-duty stuff on top. Where it's
on duty, off duty, whatever they're doing. I mean, it was.
But no, when the cops get involved, it's already gone out here, and you can't pull those back. But we're talking about when you can manage it and you're not trying to sweep it under the rug,
and it's at your level.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not even. See, people say, "Oh, you just swept it under the rug." No, I went out and dealt with it, and this is what we did. Yeah, it wasn't. Yeah, this is.
I had a guy. He just retired from the last city I worked in, and he was very nice to me at a funeral that we went to last week for cancer. Kevin Thompson. He just KT died. Sorry, I get emotional about it, and. Anyway, he died. We went to his funeral, and this guy's retiring. He comes up to me and says, "Hey, I'm retiring. I'd like you to come to my fire station, and it's tomorrow, and say hi to the guys." I'm thinking, no, I haven't been their fire chief there for 3 years. You got a fire chief, and I'm not going to do that. I didn't say that. I just said, let me check.
Yeah.
But I know why he likes me. He likes me because he did something goofy that was as a fire chief, I said, okay, I'm going to drive to his fire station. I drove to his fire station. He's a captain. I went to his fire station, said, hey, come out here. He goes, what, chief? I said, we're going to talk and on my tailboard of my Suburban. And he said, what happened? I said, here's what I heard. Oh, I didn't think it was, I thought that person was really, they loved seeing me there and I was nice to them. No, they said that you acted like this and this, and they never want to see you again. It was a patient interaction. He goes, he was so surprised. He goes, I honestly thought that, and you could tell he was sincere. He goes, I thought they liked me. And said, no, your cuteness it didn't come off as cute as you think it did. It came off as arrogant, mean-spirited, and hurtful. Oh, don't do it again. Okay, so I went away. That gets somehow to the city manager. City manager says, I heard this, because he knew somebody at that workplace who said you had an incident with a guy, and yeah, I did. Did you handle it? Yeah, I handled it. You got paperwork on it? No. What'd you do? Told him what I did. You
took care of it.
He said, you can't do that. I go, oh, I did that. You can't do that. I said, I did that.
Yeah, it's already happened.
Yeah, so now him and I are having a conversation because he thought that should have been kicked up over to HR. In the process, he would have known about it. It's like, no, what you're responding to, Mr. City Manager, is half of a story. You haven't heard the whole story. You didn't pause before you talked to me. You didn't think about what's going on. You didn't get all the facts. You called me in here and said, if this happened, I want you to deal with it. And I'm telling you I dealt with it because I have all the facts and all the information. That's the way I wanted to do it. How do you think that went? The relationship's tightened. Yeah. It's not good. Yeah. But that's all part of that, right? Getting all the information and then kind of dealing with it. Don't make it worse.
Well, and one of the points in your article, and it's from Bruno too, is life isn't perfect, right? You got to have some fortitude to deal with things. And when you're in a leadership role, it might not be something you created, but it's your problem.
Yeah. Bruno told me that because I had a situation, and he actually said that to me at lunchtime. He said, Terry, it's not it. What did he say? It's not your fault, but it's your problem.
Yeah.
You got to do it. As a leader, it wasn't your fault, but it's your problem. And I took that and I said, wow, that's really. Now, I've told this to people and they go, well, it's not a problem. It's an opportunity. And we go through that. But it's like, no, it's something that I have to deal with. As a chief, it's my working fire that I got to manage right now, right?
Well, and as the boss, when you're the boss of people, you really you can't overreact. You got to be chill, and there's certain things like somebody who works with me will say something, and it's like I'm ready to just throw it out there, just the most witty, sarcastic thing you could ever dream of.
Hey, leave me alone.
And It like hurts their feelings. And I think, no, come on. You just shot me in the chest with a shotgun, and I tickled you with the feather, and now your feelings are hurt. And I'm like, well, it's just easier not to tickle them with the feather. And they can shoot shotguns at me all day. It just goes right through. It doesn't hurt. So it's... See, and that's one of the challenges of being the boss, is the workers they don't have control over you directly. Now, they can control you through their emotions and other things. I mean, that's going to affect you some way or another, or you're not a human. But you've got more power than they will. And so it's going to limit how you can even tease and have fun with them, because they'll take that the wrong way. Yeah. Even people you're related to, and you're like, no, this is, you just, and I've learned over, I don't know, the few years I've been doing this, that no, you can't. Yeah. You just have to kind of moderate yourself a little bit more than you normally would as a firefighter. Firefighters can say stupid shit and get away with it because they're task level workers who bump into stuff all day. That's kind of where I was, and then my bosses took care of me, and they would protect me from myself sometimes and say, no, you can't say that. You can't act this way. You got to act this way. And like young elephants, you don't know what's right or wrong. We hire people that are 20 years old. Your brain's not fully formed until you're in your late 20s.
I'm still waiting.
And then you look at what we do for a living. Is everything we go on is a mistake. That's why we get called. And the bigger the mistake, the more glaring and obvious it becomes to everybody. And you're like, well, okay, we respond to other people's mistakes, and that's what we do for our occupation. So you think we'd have more patience with each other because this is what we deal with every day.
Well, Nick, now I was getting ready to interject something, and you went right there to where I was headed. And it's amazing that you do that because we spent some time together. But when you're a battalion chief and a call comes in and somebody made a mistake, a welder's torch, and you go to the scene, you don't get mad at the welder. No. But when you're in a leadership position and you're sitting in your office and then somebody does something goofy, you're mad because you got to deal with it.
Yeah, that's what it is.
This whole day outlined. I got all this stuff. I'm going to golf. I'm going to have lunch. I'm going to write an article. I'm going to go do this and this. And now firefighter so-and-so did this, and now I got to deal with this. I'm pissed. No, that's your job to deal with that because you're supposed to be in a position to protect the customer, protect the other firefighters, protect your organization, be a steward, good stewardship for whoever you're working for. And when something happens like that, that's what you got to deal with. Don't get mad because you get, and I know it's easy to say that because I still get frustrated, but don't get mad. Try not to get mad. Just it's your problem now. Deal with it.
See, and we've all known fire chiefs, and their deal was where they say, well, if somebody does something stupid enough that it has to involve me,
Oh, yeah.
then they've got it coming. And you're like, well,
That's your job.
so you're like the dean of students of the fire department then. Well, no, I'm the chief, and and it's almost like they feel that these people have done this just to upset them.
Exactly.
And you're like, I mean,
they personalize it.
Yeah, it's like, well, no, this is my fire department, and it's almost like I'm the dad, and you're all my children, and you're like, no, this is Although David Fisher used to say Alan Brunacini's our mother, so I mean that's kind of a.
I just saw him at the funeral the other day. He still says it.
Well, you were talking about another guy you met with the other day was crying over it. I mean, like 20 years later. So that has a profound effect on people when a boss treats them as an equal. And like you do your thing and I do mine, and it all has to do with us doing the work.
Everybody knows you're the fire chief or the battalion chief. It's written on your frickin' shirt. You don't have to act like it. What you can act like is a very supportive leader and help them through their day. And when they do something goofy, deal with it at whatever level necessary.
And there's a difference between a one-off problem and a habitual offender too.
Oh yeah.
And we all know that it's the same 10 people. Like I said, is when I was a BC, I could give you a rundown of every person that worked in my battalion, except maybe some of the guys and girls who just the young firefighters that had come out of the academy. Yeah. They were too new for me to know them yet. But like 90% of the people in my battalion, I could tell you, and then I could give you a little overview of, okay, here's their strengths, here's their weaknesses. And now, I didn't go to their station every day. I wasn't like the sheriff who thought, no, I got to visit every station, every shift. I thought, well, if I see every person, every company, I don't have to see them in the station. We go on calls together. Yeah. It's the work that unites us. And then I go to stations, more of a social thing, to have to break bread, maybe partake in whatever it was, but it was more of a social setting.
Most of the people that you see in disciplinary or have issues, you'll see them one time. You'll never see him again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In fact, we used to say, okay, is that guy going to be back? And I would ask, I was in an organization that I didn't know so well, but he knew everybody. And I said, are we going to see him again? He goes, no, you're not going to see that guy again, Chief. No, we're going to see that guy again? He goes, yeah, he'll be back in 3 months with another issue.
Well, you spend 95% of your time dealing with 3% of your workforce.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
That's what it is.
Yep.
And you got, and some of them you love. You think, man, if you fix this one thing, you would be in charge of the whole world. But you have got this weakness that you
shouldn't get days off.
No, you should have to work extra, and that's what they would do. They'd reassign them
on days off.
Well, they would reassign people to like staff jobs if they were too far upside down or. Yeah, I mean, they made it work. There's a 2,000 person asylum that we came from, and it was just, it was like Cuckoo's Nest. It worked at a very high level. Yeah, and there weren't really, generally speaking, Nurse Ratched couldn't subjugate us. So we had our Nurse Ratchets, but they were usually frustrated most of the time.
Well, and there's something your dad said a lot too about lightening up, relax. You talk about it in the article, like
humor.
Yeah, how about, let's dive into that because I think people forget that and they become Frank Burns, the fire chief, rather than Bruno, the fire chief.
I was just looking at some stuff he wrote, and he said, and it was A&P stuff, and he said the most important body part is your funny bone. The human sense of humor is their strongest quality. That's what separates us from the animals, is we can laugh at ourselves.
Monkeys laugh.
Well, yeah, but they're humans, basically. And a monkey's like 97% human.
Not fully developed.
Jane Goodall was on one of the talk shows before she died. And the host asked her about, are monkeys your favorite animal? And she says, no, they're too much like humans. She says, dogs are the greatest creatures that were ever created. And I thought, and then she took a drink of whiskey, and you thought, you should be in charge of much of the world, ma'am. You know more about this than the current people in charge of everything. Yeah.
But lighten up. I think Bruno said that. Lighten up, man. Just
don't take yourself so seriously.
You shared a video with me of a guy talking, and we'll talk about this a second. It's called mere. His theory on leadership is mere reciprocation.
Yes.
And that was wonderful. And he told it, and you could say it, John, probably better than any of us, but tell him the elevator theory that he has. You walk into an elevator, there's one other person standing there, and this mere reciprocity, I say reciprocity.
Yeah, he refers to it as reciprocity.
And you look at those people and you can do one of three things. You can smile at them, 98% of the time they'll smile back. You can growl at them, 98% of the time they'll growl back, or you can ignore them and get on, and 98% of the time they'll ignore you. So people will mirror your behavior. And that's what Bruno did so well, is he was very calming, he would smile at you, he would be very welcoming. You could do all that under very stressful situations. Is somebody's in trouble, they come to your door, you say, come on in, sit down, let's talk.
Yeah.
Like you're the same way all the time, so you're consistent and people get used to you. And so, like, there were times where I would show up to a station, and it's because they had done a set of things where you had to intervene, do something personnel-wise. And, oh, you only show up when we're in trouble. Well, that's not true. I show up all the time. I just don't come by your station every day. But, I say on calls and whatever else. And if you guys don't like seeing me here, you need to stop these abject behaviors you're doing with other people. And then we'll stop. But, and a lot of that had to do with citizens' complaints. Yeah. So it was, there was 2 or 3 companies in a battalion that when a complaint comes in, because the players, you're like, yeah, I wouldn't want that guy in my house. I mean, I can see him doing this. Yeah. And you talk to him, and like sometimes he didn't. He says, no, I didn't. And you're like, screw. No, he didn't. This person was crazy. And you get the rest of it, and you think, okay, good. Well, you get this. This one's a pass. Thank you. Yeah. We don't have to do anything. But, you have this. And then 2 weeks later, you get the same thing, and he did it. And you're like, ugh. And you wonder. You think, we've talked about this. You don't want to see me. I really don't want to see you. Why don't you just do your job? And then, we'll be fine. Blah, 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 blah. And then you think, Jesus Christ, we're married now. Thank you for spoiling the next couple months.
There's some organizations, and they want you to document everything. Mm-hmm. I never really understood that too much.
That kind of ties your hands.
Because you can't name all the things. They got a list of, if you do all these things, this goes over here and this goes over here. You can't capture everything the human can. No. And a firefighter will, okay, I see your list and I raise you one more thing, add to your list.
Terry, sometimes I would keep a note, like a little Post-it note in my locker, on this day, talk to this guy about this. And it would be on the complaint, talked about this. So, and then you would bring that person in again for the same thing. So now you got 2 or 3 of them. Well, then the union guy we were talking about earlier is with them eventually, because you think, and it's like, well, this could be personnel, have your union guy. And so you're discussing, he says, well, where'd this note come from? I said, well, we had this conversation on this day. Well, you can't document that. You didn't document it at the time. I said, well, I don't have to, because I verbally told him, don't do this anymore. And that's where it ended. And now we're writing it down because I told him 3 times to not do this over the last year. And this seems to be a reoccurring problem, and we got to do something.
Yeah. So, and every organization has its own process like that. And what I saw that works best is you can keep some working notes, but when you first start the disciplinary process and you have like 3 work notes, it's only one. You got to handle it as the first incident, because the other ones you were trying to work, you can't pull in months of incidents and say, I got you. And that's not what you were doing. You would use it for your own notes to remind you, but but
there's a backstory and a history when you finally get to that point that is going to be part of that.
The lines, that's why we're talking more in general about how you manage all these, because, man, there's some organizations, you got to do it this way. And there's somebody sitting out there right now listening going, that's bullshit, because in my organization we had to document every time. We got to do this, and it's got to go to the chief. Yeah. And we're sorry for that. But what we're saying is that when you interact as a leader, there's a lot of ways to move issues forward.
I'm going to say even in those systems, you've got running room. There's room between lines.
I would hope so.
Well, no, we do it this way all the time, and you're like, no, that's not.
Well, those are usually toxic atmospheres, though, because there are cities out there that the entire city's toxic. and they're going to hang paper on everybody because they want to fry everybody. And and those are probably places where there's a new fire chief every 2 years, and the command staff changes every couple of years because no one can live in that environment for long.
Nowadays, firefighters will leave there and go to the next city and work where it's more pleasant and the pay's the same.
Yeah. Well, and those systems run like a prison. It's like, no, we're in charge, and this is what you're going to. If you're an officer, you're a guard, and you're guarding the inmates, and you're like, well, that's not the way a fire department really runs.
Them. What a terrible way to work.
That's horrible.
I told a battalion chief once talking about that. I go, we're not playing warden's wife here. Not everything's a shower scene from Oz.
Yeah.
So let's knock it off.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Jesus. Yeah.
Hey, you guys want to do a timeless tactical truth before we...
before you leave that...
Oh, yes, please do.
I wanted to carry it here. So the article mentions... So Bruno would have these 3x5 cards. I got 2 of them for 2 different issues in here, and they're available on
B-Shifter.
B-Shifter. Yeah. But he would carry these, and he would actually use them. Like he would, if he had a conversation with somebody, like if you're sitting across a breakfast table with him, and you got an issue or something, he may pull out this card and go, and then you could talk about it because they're really good. There's like, I don't know, 20-some points on this card, and I only put a couple of them because they pertain to that topic. Maybe they probably all could pertain, but I didn't want the article to be that way. But it's nice to get these and have, and even if make up your own cards where you work, and a couple things to remind you, like take a breath, be calm, smile, something.
Yeah,
just a few of those things.
And you're not putting the decision off, but you're not painting yourself in a corner. So you're creating discretionary time for everybody.
That's nice.
And that's kind of the key, especially to low-level infractions and things. If you don't have to do something right away, don't do something right away.
And in the fireground, we don't have discretionary time, but in leadership, there's usually some discretion.
Personnel issues.
First line supervisors, they may have to stop something right there, safety or customer issue, but as it starts moving up, create some discretion. I like the way you say that. Create some discretionary some time for yourself.
And that's part of being nice. Patience, kindness, consideration, respect.
Underreact. Underreact. Yeah. You don't have to wear your emotions on your face every time.
Well, and I think chiefs do that a lot of times too because, this is what I'm being paid. I'm being paid to be the authority. I've got to get mad about this.
Yeah, that's a loser thing right there. That's Well, that's the prison mentality. Yeah. You violated the rules and now you're going to get it.
I'm going to get a trench coat and walk around.
Yeah. Well. Let's do our timeless tactical truth, shall we?
It'll save us from ourselves.
That's true. I mean, come on. All right. Timeless tactical truth from Alan Brunacini. That too available at the B-Shifter store. And this one, the more seniority a screw up gets, the harder it is to fix. This applies to both the firefighting operations and, unfortunately, firefighters. So the more seniority a screw up gets, the harder it is to fix. This is, those problems that you have to deal with, right? Like if you let something that is a serious issue go on for so long, which is a little counter to some of the low-level problems we were talking about, but dive into a problem getting seniority.
No, I love the fact that he tied that to the fireground. He says it's like the fireground, where if you see something and you don't deal with it right away, you're going to be dealing with it in about 3.5 minutes, right? And the same thing with somebody in an organization who is a knucklehead. And 10 months from now, they're still going to be a knucklehead. You should have dealt with that back there. So all the things we're saying here today isn't ignore situations, ignore employees that have problems. You got to deal with those problems. Just the way you deal with them, you could be kind in your nature and consistent in your nature, but you got to deal with that. So, seniority's a funny thing. Seniority occurs everywhere. It occurs on Southwest Airlines when you're in the first group boarding a plane and you get your seat and you're saving the one next to you for your spouse, and somebody in the second group tries to take that seat. No, I got this. you don't own that. But if people are nice, they'll go, you want to sit with your spouse for this hour and a half flight, you love them that much, go ahead and take that seat or whatever. But it's funny how people get seniority. You ever go to a Costco? The people in the front of the line have seniority and they act. I mean, it is the human nature on seniority. I got here first. The
guy who passed your wife had seniority, and you tried to take it back from him.
I tried to but seriously, that whole seniority deal in the fire service, where I've been here longer, so I know more. Not necessarily. Bruno used to say you got a guy with 10 years experience, or you got a guy with 10 years experience. How did he say that? 1 year? How did he say that?
10 years of experience or 1 year of experience 10 times.
I knew I wouldn't get that right. But I would always think about that. So seniority is a funny thing. You get it. It is everywhere. And some people really play it out where if you promote past somebody with seniority, that's a big problem in some organizations. Like, you may be a battalion chief, but I've been a captain 12 years here, so don't tell me what to do, buddy. And if you allow that as a battalion chief, get ready, because you're going to spend a lot of time taking that kind of bullying from that person.
Right.
Well, if you let's put it back to the fireground where he had it. We're like a senior hazard. A hazard becomes a senior hazard. Well, you change strategy then, typically. So it's gone from offensive to defensive. Well, my reaction to that is I'm going to change the strategy. So that doesn't mean we're going to leave the incident scene and not take care of the problem. It just means we're going to do it in a different way, because our offensive tactics do not work on defensive fire conditions. No matter how hard we try, it's not going to put the fire out, and it's going to unnecessarily jeopardize us. So we put a pin in it by changing the strategy and getting a par on everybody. Well, a senior personnel problem means it's senior because when it was smaller and you identified it as a problem, nobody did anything to correct it because that's uncomfortable for us or for whatever reason. Well, now it gets worse. And so that problem grows in scope and whatever it is. And especially if it's an employee that's just taking advantage of the system. That they no longer care about that, and it's, oh, what about me? I'm having all these problems in my life, and nobody cares. You think, no, I'm changing the strategy with you, so we're putting a pin in it right now, and we're going to start dealing with your issues. So, and it's like a BC, you could see that. You could see stations where you had employees that were like, no, you are doing a set of things where you're just right in the back of the wagon. You ain't contributing. And in fact, you're causing disruption at this point. So you would try to do a set of things to, like, I don't know, like you say, training. As a lot of times training, you'll pull them in. And, well, if they pull that bullshit in training, it's like, now you're doing a set of things that you're not valuing the work anymore. And so you ignoring your responsibility for service delivery is having a negative impact on all of us.
I think for me, a fire chief, when I was a new fire chief in every city that I worked in, all three of them, what surprised me the most is that, oh, that's that guy. He's always been that way. Yeah. And they allow it because it's happened so long. And you talk about that with implementing Blue Card. It's like people say, well, yeah, we want to implement the system, but we got to wait till this guy leaves because he's the fire captain. You're the fire chief. Yeah, but that guy's got to go. I found that every organization has those people that have been mean-spirited so long that you come in. I had a fire.
The guy with the brooms.
Yeah.
No, you can't do it. Here's a broom. The hell with you.
When I was a fire chief in Oceanside and we get to the scene and we're implementing the 8 functions of command at the time and we're staging and doing all those kind of things, and we have an actual working 2-story apartment fire, and the ladder captain gets off his truck with his crew, and I'm sitting there with the incident commander. I know he hasn't assigned that ladder captain. That ladder captain walks by with his crew, and they got their tools, and they go to the roof. I said, what the hell happened? He goes, oh, he always does that. He's always done that. He said, you can't do that. You're the IC. You want me to do it? I said, yeah. And I could see by the look in his face.
Oh, terror.
I said, wait here. I walk out, and this isn't bragging because I was a little nervous about it too. I just knew that I had to do something about it. So I'll walk out and I tell the ladder guy, "Hey, come here, Captain." What? Like I was interrupting with what he was going. What?
Yeah.
I said, "Here's how you get your crew.
Yeah. Oh,
Go back and get on your ladder truck and go back to your station. Put yourself in service." What? I told him again. He went off pissy. I had trouble with him the whole time I was there, and he went off pissy, and those guys like, "Can't believe you did that." It's like, you guys, if we're going to say we're going to do this, we got to do this.
Yes.
We can't just, we're going to do it for everybody but that guy.
Yeah.
See, I would fully expect to go back to the station and suspend him after that. That's really kind of where you think, okay, you just are a freelancer. The fire chief asked you a question. You acted like you couldn't be bothered by it. We're going to realign your expectations of the rank structure of this organization
So my
right now.
follow-up was, after the fire's over, he's in your battalion, you need to go handle him. I pushed you right back on him.
Well, yeah, that would probably be the way to do it. Really,
so
yeah.
go
'Cause
back,
that's
deal with that guy and handle it. If you need to get me involved, I'll get involved. But you should be able to, And he's like, what he was looking for was organizational support too, because he wasn't sure how the organization. You've been in organizations where they tell you, and then the fire chief said, "No, that's Joe. Let him get away with it."
Yeah.
But whatever. He was looking for that support,
and that's obviously what happened up to the point you got there, because that's what the guy had done his whole career.
Yeah. But I remember that. That's only happened once.
Whenever, as a leader, you hear, "Well, that's just Scott being Scott."
Yeah.
I instantly decode that as Scott's an asshole.
Yeah.
Like that's what I'm hearing between the lines.
You guys have allowed Scott to be an asshole.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, and it's like, and you. Yeah, they can't outperform that. Yeah. And they may be nice in other ways, and that's kind of how they've got to this point, is because there was something they had to offer, but it's not worth screwing around with. I mean, and most of them, if that happened in their marriage, they'd be divorced the next day, gladly. And you're like, well, but you put up with it from Scott. What's...
Scott was married 4 times. Go figure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
but they're out in every organization. Yeah, right? That's a good one.
It's the same 10 of us. Yeah, we all got Scott.
So it's so beautiful that those timeless tactical truths. Bruno wrote those how many years ago? And it
was starting in the 50s.
And it's his personal experience that he witnessed. So he saw things that most of us would see.
Oh man, the second
he writes
the
it
second
down.
batch we have, when you get to like the last part of the second edition, you're like, Jesus Christ, this is biblical. Some of the shit this guy's talking about now,
it's
man.
really good.
Oh, it's philosophical. You could stoicism, the whole thing. He's in the cave hanging on the wall. You're like, this is deep reflective.
Marcus Aurelius.
It was, the human condition is coming out.
It's been good hanging out with you guys today.
It's always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Nick Brunacini,
John Vance.
good to see you.
Terry Garrison.
Terry Garrison, good to see you.
Yeehaw!
Thank you, everyone, for listening and being with us on this journey today. We'll talk to you next time on B Shifter.
Woohoo!